The Lost Path. Tom stood at the edge of the dense forest, holding a worn map his grandfather had given him years ago. The map was faded, its lines barely visible, but Tom felt an urge to follow it. His grandfather used to tell him stories about an ancient treasure hidden deep within these woods. It had always been Tom's dream to find it, but until now, he'd never had the courage to venture alone. Today was different. Tom was ready. He adjusted his backpack and glanced back at his friend, Liam, who was visiting from England. Liam had been fascinated by Tom's stories about the forest and had insisted on joining the adventure. "You sure this is a good idea?" Liam asked, his British accent light but tinged with doubt. "This place looks like a maze." Tom grinned, his eyes bright with excitement. "Of course! The map will guide us, just like it guided my grandfather." Liam shrugged. "All right then. Lead the way, Captain." The two boys stepped into the forest, the tall trees closing in around them. The air was cool and smelled of pine, and the sunlight barely reached the forest floor. Tom felt a thrill of excitement mixed with a hint of fear as he studied the map. He led Liam along narrow trails, crossing small streams and ducking under low-hanging branches. After walking for about 20 minutes, they reached a small clearing. Tom paused, checking the map again. The path seemed to split into two. His grandfather had never mentioned this in his stories, and for a moment, doubt crept into Tom's mind. He frowned, staring at the map as if the answer would magically appear. "What's wrong?" Liam asked, noticing Tom's hesitation. Tom hesitated, biting his lip. "I'm not sure which way to go." Liam raised an eyebrow, the playful look in his eyes replaced with concern. "Are you telling me we're lost?" Tom shook his head, trying to sound confident. No, we just need to figure this out." He squinted at the map, hoping for some clue. Just then, a rustling sound came from the bushes nearby. Tom's heart jumped. "Did you hear that?" Liam nodded, his eyes wide. "Yeah, what was that?" The two boys stood frozen for a moment, listening. The forest was suddenly alive with strange noises. The rustle of leaves, the chirp of birds, and something else, something heavier, like footsteps. Tom's excitement quickly turned to fear. His grip on the map tightened as he whispered, "Maybe we should turn back." Liam, sensing Tom's worry, nodded. "Yeah, good idea." But as they turned, the path behind them seemed to vanish into a wall of thick, twisting vines. Tom's heart pounded. "Wait, this wasn't here before." Liam's face paled. "Tom, what's going on?" Tom felt a wave of panic rising inside him. The forest seemed to shift and change, trapping them in a maze of dense foliage. I don't know." The boys moved quickly, trying to find the trail they had come from, but every path led them in circles, and the forest seemed to grow darker and colder. Tom's confidence wavered as the fear of being lost settled in. The stories his grandfather told him suddenly felt very real and very frightening. "Tom, what if we can't get out?" Liam's voice was small, filled with worry. Tom's hands trembled as he held the map, which now seemed useless. "We'll find a way," he said, though his voice lacked the certainty it had before. "We just have to keep moving." They walked for what felt like hours, the forest growing thicker and more ominous with every step. Tom felt a deep sense of dread. Had he made a mistake bringing Liam here? Would they ever find their way back? Just as Tom was about to suggest they rest, they stumbled upon an ancient stone archway covered in moss. The archway was barely visible, hidden among the tall trees, and Tom felt a strange pull towards it. "Look," he whispered, pointing. "This must be it." Liam peered at the archway. "The map doesn't show this, does it?" Tom shook his head, feeling both fear and excitement. "No, but I think we're meant to go through." Liam hesitated. "Are you sure? It looks old and kind of spooky." Tom felt the pull again, stronger this time. "We've come this far, haven't we? Let's check it out." The boys stepped through the archway and the forest seemed to shift again. Suddenly, they found themselves in a clearing surrounded by towering stone pillars, each carved with symbols. In the center was a large stone table with an object glowing faintly on top. Tom and Liam exchanged nervous glances. "This is it," Tom whispered. "This is what my grandfather talked about." Liam nodded, his eyes fixed on the glowing object. "Is that the treasure?" Tom approached the table, his heart racing. The object was a small, ancient compass. It was different from any compass he had ever seen. Its needle glowed a soft blue, and strange symbols surrounded its edges. Tom reached out, his hand trembling. As soon as he touched the compass, a surge of energy shot through him, and the ground began to shake. The stone pillars lit up one by one, and a low rumbling filled the air. Tom and Liam stepped back, their eyes wide with fear. "What did you do?" Liam shouted, gripping Tom's arm. "I don't know." Tom stammered, clutching the compass tightly. The ground beneath their feet split open, and a gust of wind whipped around them, pulling them towards a swirling vortex that had formed in the center of the clearing. Tom felt himself being lifted off the ground, and before he could react, he and Liam were sucked into the vortex. For a moment, everything was a blur of colors and sounds. Tom's head spun, and he felt like he was falling through an endless tunnel. Then, just as suddenly as it began, the whirlwind stopped, and they were dropped onto the hard ground. Tom groaned, his body aching. He opened his eyes and found himself lying on a patch of soft grass. The forest was gone. He was no longer in the familiar woods he had known all his life. Instead, he and Liam were in a vast, open meadow filled with flowers that sparkled like jewels. "Where are we?" Liam asked, sitting up and rubbing his head. Tom looked around, confusion etched on his face. "I don't know. This isn't on the map." Liam's eyes narrowed. "What kind of place is this? And how did we get here?" Tom shook his head, his grip still tight on the glowing compass. I think the compass brought us here." The boys stood up, staring at the surreal landscape. The sky was a shade of purple, and 2 moons hung above them, casting an eerie light. Strange creatures with wings darted through the air, and in the distance, a river glowed a bright blue. Tom's sense of adventure returned, but it was mixed with uncertainty. "I think we need to follow the compass. It's our only way out." Liam sighed, but he nodded. "All right, but no more surprises, okay?" Tom smirked, a hint of his old confidence returning. "No promises." They followed the compass, which now pointed towards a distant mountain range. As they walked, the meadow transformed into a rocky path, and the temperature dropped. Tom felt a chill, but he ignored it, keeping his eyes on the glowing needle. Hours passed, and the boys' legs grew tired. The path became steeper, and the wind howled around them. Tom could see the mountains ahead, their peaks covered in snow, but the distance seemed never-ending. Just as they were about to take a break, they heard a strange noise, a soft melodic humming. Tom and Liam exchanged glances before creeping towards the sound. They peeked over a ridge and saw a small, glowing figure sitting by a pool of water. Tom's eyes widened. "Is that a fairy?" Liam blinked in disbelief. "I think so." The fairy was no taller than Tom's hand, with wings that shimmered like glass. It noticed the boys and smiled. "Travelers, what brings you here?" it asked, its voice soft and musical. Tom held up the compass. "We're following this. It brought us here, but we don't know where we are." The fairy nodded. "You are in the land of lost paths, a place where time and space intertwine. The compass you hold is a key, but it will test your courage and heart." Liam frowned. "What do you mean by test?" The fairy's expression grew serious. "The compass will guide you through trials. If you pass, it will show you the way home. But if you fail, you may be lost here forever." Tom's heart pounded. "What kind of trials?" The fairy pointed towards the mountains. You must reach the peak. Along the way, you will face challenges that test your friendship, your courage, and your loyalty. Liam glanced at Tom, his expression unreadable. Are we really doing this? Tom felt a mix of fear and determination. We've come this far, and we can't turn back now. We'll face whatever trials come our way. Liam took a deep breath and nodded. All right, Tom. Let's do it. But if we make it through, you owe me a giant pizza. Tom laughed, the tension easing a bit. Deal. The boys continued their journey, climbing higher into the mountains. The path became steeper and the air thinner. Snowflakes began to fall, and the cold bit at their skin. As they trudged through the icy wind, Tom thought about his grandfather's stories. His grandfather had always seemed so fearless, and Tom wanted to live up to that legacy. After an hour of climbing, they reached a narrow ledge overlooking a deep chasm. A rickety old bridge swayed in the wind, its wooden planks creaking ominously. Tom hesitated, feeling a chill of fear. This must be one of the trials, Liam muttered, peering over the edge. Looks like a long drop. Tom nodded, gripping the compass tightly. The needle pointed straight across the bridge. We have to cross it. Liam's eyes widened. Are you serious? That thing looks like it'll snap if a bird lands on it. Tom forced a smile. We'll go one at a time. It's the only way forward. He took a deep breath and stepped onto the bridge. The wood creaked under his weight and the wind picked up, making the bridge sway. Tom's heart pounded, and he fought to steady his breathing. He took another step, then another, the abyss below him seeming to pull at his feet. Liam watched from the ledge, his face pale. Just take it slow, Tom. Tom nodded, his hands gripping the ropes tightly as he moved forward. He was halfway across when a strong gust of wind hit, making the bridge swing violently. Tom slipped, and for a moment he dangled over the edge, the chasm below beckoning him. His heart raced, and his breath caught in his throat. Tom, Liam shouted, panic in his voice. Hold on. Tom gritted his teeth, his fingers burning as he clung to the ropes. He felt a wave of fear surge through him, but then he remembered his grandfather's words. Fear is the only thing that can truly defeat you. Summoning his strength, he pulled himself up and steadied his feet on the plank. He continued slowly, step by step, until he finally reached the other side. Tom let out a sigh of relief, his legs trembling. Okay, Liam, your turn. Liam's face was tense, but he nodded. All right, here goes nothing. He stepped onto the bridge, his eyes fixed on Tom. Tom could see the fear in his friend's eyes, but he also saw determination. Liam moved slowly, his hands gripping the ropes as he walked. The wind howled and the bridge swayed again, but Liam kept his balance. Just as he neared the halfway point, one of the planks snapped. Liam's foot slipped through the gap and he dangled by one arm. Tom, help. Liam's voice was filled with fear. Tom's heart leapt into his throat. Hold on, Liam. He dropped to his knees and reached out as far as he could. Grab my hand. Liam swung his arm, his fingers just missing Tom's. Tom pushed himself further, leaning over the edge until he could feel Liam's fingertips brush against his. With one final push, their hands connected, and Tom pulled with all his strength. Liam grunted, his face contorted with effort, as Tom dragged him up onto the plank. Together, they crawled to the other side, collapsing in a heap. For a moment, they lay there, breathing heavily. Then, Liam burst into laughter, his voice echoing off the mountain walls. I thought I was done for back there. Tom laughed too, relief washing over him. I told you, you're not getting rid of me that easily. Liam grinned, but there was a hint of seriousness in his eyes. Thanks, Tom. I wouldn't have made it without you. Tom felt a warmth in his chest. We're a team. We've got each other's backs. The boys stood up, dusting off the snow. The path ahead continued to climb, winding through the mountain peaks. Tom checked the compass. It still pointed forward, its blue glow brighter than before. The trial they had just faced had tested their courage and trust, and Tom felt more determined than ever. As they moved further, the wind picked up and the sky darkened. Snow began to fall heavily, making it harder to see. Tom and Liam trudged through the deepening snow, shivering from the cold. Each step felt like a struggle, and their energy was quickly draining. "We need to find shelter," Liam said, his voice muffled by the wind. Tom scanned the landscape, his eyes squinting against the blizzard. In the distance, he saw a faint glow. "There. I think there's a cave." They pushed forward, their bodies numb from the cold. The glow grew brighter until they finally reached a small cave entrance. Warm light flickered from within, and the boys stumbled inside, grateful to escape the storm. Inside, the cave was cozy and warm, a small fire burning in the center. Tom and Liam exchanged confused glances. Who had started the fire? As they warmed their hands, an elderly woman appeared from the shadows, her eyes twinkling with kindness. "Welcome, travelers," she said, her voice soft and melodic. "I've been expecting you." Tom's hands trembled as he took a stay. Tom's eyes filled with tears as he forced himself to look away from the figure. Together he and Liam ran through the mist, the laughter and whispers fading behind them. Tom's heart pounded, but he felt a sense of relief as they broke free from the mist and emerged onto a clear path. "That was close," Liam said, panting. "Whatever that was, it wasn't good." Tom nodded, wiping his eyes. "Thanks, Liam. I almost believed it." Liam clapped him on the back. "We've got each other's backs, remember? We'll get through this." As they continued, Tom felt his resolve strengthen. The trials were testing his deepest fears, but he knew now that he wasn't alone. With Liam by his side, he felt ready to face whatever lay ahead. Tom and Liam continued their ascent, the path winding higher into the mountains. The air grew thin, and the chill returned, biting at their skin. Tom could feel his breath becoming heavier, but he pushed forward, determined not to let his fear hold him back. The compass glowed brighter in his hand, its needle pointing toward a peak that pierced through the clouds. "Are you okay?" Liam asked, noticing Tom's labored breathing. Tom nodded, forcing a smile. "I'm fine. Just a little tired." Liam smirked, his humor returning despite the tension. "Good, because I don't fancy carrying you up the mountain." Tom chuckled, grateful for the light-hearted moment. "Don't worry, I'll make it. And when we reach the top, I'll be the one to carry you." The banter between them helped ease the growing tension, and for a moment, they felt like they were back on one of their usual adventures, not climbing a mountain that tested their courage and friendship. But as they climbed, the terrain became more treacherous. The path narrowed, and they had to cling to the rock face as they moved, one careful step at a time. After what felt like hours, they reached a plateau. Tom paused to catch his breath, the view breathtaking despite the icy wind. Below, the forest and meadow where they had started were mere specks. Ahead, the path led to a dark, foreboding cave. Liam eyed the entrance warily. "Let me guess, this is another one of those tests?" Tom shrugged, feeling the weight of the moment. "Probably. But we have to go in. The compass points this way." They stepped into the cave, the darkness enveloping them. Tom fumbled for his flashlight, but as soon as he switched it on, the walls lit up with a soft blue glow. The cave was lined with crystals, each one reflecting the light and creating a magical atmosphere. The boys stared in awe, momentarily forgetting their fears. They stepped into the cave, the darkness enveloping them. Tom fumbled for his flashlight, but as soon as he switched it on, the walls lit up with a soft blue glow. The cave was lined with crystals, each one reflecting the light and creating a magical atmosphere. The boys stared in awe, momentarily forgetting their fears. "This is incredible," Liam whispered, touching one of the crystals. Tom smiled. "Yeah, it's like something out of a storybook." As they ventured deeper into the cave, the crystal's glow became brighter and the air grew warmer. Tom felt a sense of calm, as if the cave was welcoming them. But just as he began to relax, a low rumble echoed through the tunnels. Liam's eyes darted around. What was that? Tom gripped the compass tightly. "I don't know. Stay close." The rumble grew louder, and the ground beneath their feet trembled. Suddenly the path split into 3 tunnels, each one glowing with a different color: blue, red, and green. The compass needle spun wildly, unable to settle on a direction. "What now?" Liam asked, his voice edged with anxiety. Tom stared at the tunnels, his mind racing. "It's another test. We have to choose the right one." Liam frowned. "But which one? The compass isn't helping." Tom felt the weight of the decision pressing down on him. Each tunnel looked identical except for the color, and he knew they had only one chance. His grandfather's words echoed in his mind, "Trust your instincts." Taking a deep breath, Tom closed his eyes and listened. The blue tunnel hummed with a soft, peaceful sound. The red tunnel roared with the sound of rushing water, and the green tunnel whispered like wind through trees. I think we should take the blue one," Tom said, opening his eyes. Liam hesitated. "Are you sure?" Tom nodded. "It feels right." Liam shrugged. "All right, if you say so, but if we end up in the middle of a dragon's den, I'm blaming you." Tom laughed, the humor helping to ease the tension. "Deal." They entered the blue tunnel, the light growing brighter as they walked. The humming sound surrounded them, creating a sense of calm. Tom felt his worries begin to fade, but he couldn't shake the feeling that the calmness was a warning, a test to see if they would let their guard down. Suddenly, the tunnel widened into a large chamber filled with water. At the center was a small island, and on the island stood a stone pedestal with a glowing orb. Tom's heart raced. This had to be the next clue. "We need to get to that island," Tom said, pointing to the pedestal. Liam stared at the water, his expression uneasy. "You're not seriously suggesting we swim, are you?" Tom shook his head. "No, look, there are stepping stones." He pointed to a series of flat rocks leading to the island. "We just have to cross carefully." Liam let out a breath. "Okay, but you go first." Tom nodded and stepped onto the first stone. It wobbled slightly but held his weight. He moved to the next one, then the next, feeling a sense of triumph as he got closer to the island. But just as he reached the halfway point, the water around him began to ripple. Liam's eyes widened. "Tom, hurry." Tom picked up his pace, but before he could take another step, a huge shape burst out of the water, a serpent with scales that glittered in the light of the crystals. Its eyes glowed a fierce yellow as it hissed, blocking Tom's path. "Tom!" Liam shouted, panic in his voice. Tom's heart pounded as he stared at the creature, frozen in fear. The serpent coiled its body, preparing to strike. Tom knew he had to move, but his legs felt like they were glued to the stone. "Tom, jump!" Liam's voice broke through the panic. With all the strength he could muster, Tom leaped to the next stone just as the serpent lunged. The creature's jaws snapped shut inches from his feet. Tom's heart raced, adrenaline flooding his body as he continued to leap from stone to stone, the serpent chasing him. Liam, standing at the edge of the water, watched with wide eyes. "Come on, Tom, you're almost there." Tom took one last leap, landing on the island just as the serpent crashed into the water behind him. He scrambled to his feet, breathing heavily as he reached for the glowing orb. The moment his hand touched it, the serpent let out a deafening roar, and the water surged around the island. Tom held the orb tightly, feeling a surge of warmth spread through his body. The serpent's image faded, and the water calmed. Liam exhaled in relief. "You did it, Tom. I thought you were a goner." Tom smiled, though his hand still shook from the encounter. "Me too, but we made it." He turned his attention back to the orb. As he held it, the blue light intensified, and the walls of the cave began to shift. The ceiling opened up, revealing a staircase carved into the rock. Liam joined Tom on the island, looking up at the staircase. "I guess that's our way out." Tom nodded. "And I think this orb is the key." He held it close as they climbed the stairs, the light guiding their way. The staircase led them out of the cave and onto another mountain path. This time, the sky was clear, and they could see the peak in the distance. The air felt different, warmer, more inviting. Tom felt a surge of hope. They were getting closer. As they walked, Tom noticed the compass glowing even brighter than before. The needle was steady, pointing directly toward the peak. "We're almost there," he said, his voice filled with excitement. Liam grinned. "See? I knew you'd figure it out." Tom laughed. "Let's just hope there are no more serpents." The path became easier, and the boys moved quickly. But as they neared the peak, they found themselves standing before a massive stone door engraved with ancient symbols. Tom held up the orb, and the symbols glowed in response. The door rumbled open, revealing a vast chamber filled with treasure, gold coins, jewels, and ancient artifacts piled high. Tom and Liam stared, their eyes wide with disbelief. "Is this?" Liam whispered. Tom nodded, his heart racing. "This must be what my grandfather was talking about. We found it." But just as they stepped forward, the room darkened, and a figure appeared. A man dressed in armor, his eyes glowing blue like the compass. He blocked their path, raising a hand. "Only those who have proven their hearts can claim the treasure," he said, his voice echoing through the chamber. Tom and Liam exchanged a glance. "We've faced every trial," Tom said. "We've proven our courage." The Guardian's eyes narrowed. "Courage alone is not enough. There is one final test." Tom felt his heart sink. "What is it?" The Guardian pointed to Tom. "One of you must choose to stay behind, allowing the other to take the treasure and return home." Liam's eyes widened. "What? No way. We both came this far. We both deserve to leave." Tom's mind raced. He thought of everything they had faced together. The serpent, the shadows, the bridge. He knew they had only made it because they had each other. But now, the choice seemed impossible. The Guardian remained silent, waiting. Liam shook his head, his voice firm. "I'm not leaving without you, Tom." Tom's eyes filled with tears. "But what if one of us has to?" Liam grabbed his shoulder. "Then we don't take the treasure. Simple as that." Tom felt a wave of emotion, gratitude, loyalty, and the deep bond they had built throughout the journey. He looked at the Guardian and said, "We choose each other. We won't leave anyone behind." For a moment the chamber was silent. Then, the Guardian's stern expression softened, and he nodded. "You have passed the final test. True friendship is the greatest treasure of all." The chamber glowed brightly, and the treasure disappeared, replaced by a golden path leading to the peak. Tom and Liam felt a surge of warmth, and the compass glowed one last time, its light shining brighter than ever. Tom smiled at Liam. "Let's finish this." They walked the golden path together, the mountain's peak finally within reach. As they reached the top, the view was breathtaking. The entire land stretched out below them, illuminated by the light of the setting sun. Tom felt a sense of peace, knowing they had conquered the trials and stayed true to each other.